Salute and peace to your YouTube family. Welcome to the second episode of the FYSA YouTube channel and podcast. I am your host, PODOSS, Petty Officer Dossman, if you don't know. And if you happen to watch my last video, you might remember me saying this. I plan on giving you a detailed breakdown of all of the ratings from A to Z. From all of the military branches, starting with the Coast Guard, since that's the one that I'm in. So we're going to start off with going from AMT all the way to Yeoman. But what I didn't say in that video is that I was going to talk about all of those rates in alphabetical order. So today, as you can tell by the thumbnail, we are talking about the machinery technicians in the United States Coast Guard. We're talking about the folks that make the Coast Guard move. We're talking about the wrench turners, the folks that actually are out there in the engine rooms making things happen, the engineers. And I'm going to tell you, like a retired MKC once told me, the Coast Guard is ran by three things: JP5 diesel fuel, a whole lot of coffee, and those MKs. So let's get this conversation underway. Roll that intro. Let's go. Now I know my fellow coasties are going to give me a hard time about saying machinery technicians make the Coast Guard go. But hey, I'm a little biased. And the Coast Guard just wouldn't be the Coast Guard if we couldn't give each other a hard time and make fun of each other. Now there's been a long history of a rivalry between all of the ratings in the Coast Guard. We poke fun at each other every day. And once you make your choice and you go off to A school and you show up to your new unit as a newly minted petty officer, you're going to be dropped smack dab in the middle of the rivalry. But it's all in fun. Now there's a saying in the Coast Guard: choose your rate, choose your fate. So I strongly suggest you do your research, watch my videos, and reach out to people such as myself before you sign your name on the dotted line and head off to A school, or after A school, show up to your new unit and start doing your job, only to realize that you hate your job. Now with this episode, I plan on providing you some pros and cons of becoming a machinery technician in the United States Coast Guard, as well as the minimum requirements you need to meet. And as usual, my goal is to make you situationally aware of all of the options that are available to you and help facilitate your success and achievement once you make your choice. But before I get into the pros and cons, I think it's only right that I give you a little history behind the machinery technician rating. Now, the legacy of the machinery technician rating goes all the way back to the 1890s when oilers served in the revenue cutter service. Then in the early 1900s, when the revenue cutter service merged with the life-saving service, the machinist mate rate and the water tender rate were created. Then around 1948, the water tender rate was changed to the boilerman's rate, and the engineman's rate was created. Then around 1974, the engineman rating, the machinist mate rating, and the boilerman all merged and combined with each other to form what we now know as the modern machinery technician rating. So if you decide to join and become a machinery technician in the United States Coast Guard, you are joining a legacy that goes back over 130 years. Now let's get into the pros and cons of becoming a machinery technician in the United States Coast Guard. So the list of pros and cons that I'm going to give you aren't in any particular order. It's just a list of pros and cons that can help you determine if becoming a machinery technician in the United States Coast Guard is for you. So without further ado, let's get into the first pro. The first pro is the fact that the machinery technician rate is the second largest rate in the United States Coast Guard. This opens up the opportunity for you to be stationed at over 98% of the units in the Coast Guard. Every large cutter, medium-sized cutter, small patrol boat, small boat station, ace to navigation unit, river tender, buoy tender, and training center throughout the Coast Guard all have billets for machinery technicians, giving you the opportunity to live and travel all over the United States. So if having the opportunity to be stationed at the majority of Coast Guard units is important to you, then the machinery technician rate might be the way to go. Pro number 2, machinery technicians in the United States Coast Guard don't just turn wrenches. We also act as federal boarding officers, conducting law enforcement missions that range from basic safety boardings, ensuring that vessels have all required safety equipment, such as their life jackets, flares, and fire extinguishers, to complex fishery boardings in the Pacific, Gulf, and Atlantic Oceans, enforcing fisheries laws to help prevent the overfishing and illegal fishing of U.S. reefs. Pro number 3, you have the opportunity to receive top-notch mechanical training, which starts at Coast Guard Training Center, Yorktown in Yorktown, Virginia, with the Coast Guard's 13-week MKA School. MKA School is where you build the foundation of your mechanical skills, or for those of you who are already mechanically inclined, it's where you increase your skills and learn how to repair Coast Guard equipment. I've seen people with absolutely no mechanical skills turned into extremely capable technicians within a few years. So if you're interested in improving your mechanical skills, or someone with absolutely no mechanical skills, but the desire and the passion to learn, the machinery technician rate might be for you. Pro number 4, leadership opportunities. Once you leave MKA school as a petty officer and arrive at your first unit, you will be thrown right into a leadership position. As a third-class petty officer, depending on where you're stationed, you will have a steady workload to manage and a few non-rates to mentor. If stationed on a cutter, you will go through the process of getting qualified as the engineer of the watch. As the engineer of the watch, you are the representative of the engineering officer on board that cutter and responsible for making sure that all of the main propulsion and auxiliary equipment are running properly and expected to respond quickly in an emergency situation if any of that equipment was to fail on your watch. Once you reach the second class level, you will have the opportunity to be an assistant engineering petty officer on a small patrol boat, at a small boat station, or even an EPO at a small ace to navigation unit, giving you the opportunity to increase your leadership skills and develop your own leadership style. Pro number 5. As a machinery technician in the United States Coast Guard, you have the opportunity to be stationed at some of the special units, such as the Maritime Safety and Security Teams, who are charged with keeping our ports and waterways safe, or Maritime Security Response Teams, who specialize in maritime anti-terrorism and high-risk law enforcement activities. Then you have the Coast Guard's Tactical Law Enforcement Teams, otherwise known as PAC-TACLIT and TACLIT South, whose members deploy on board U.S. and allied vessels to support maritime law enforcement, interdiction, and security operations. You also have the opportunity to be stationed at one of the 3 strike teams in the Coast Guard. You have the Pacific Strike Team, the Gulf Strike Team, and the Atlantic Strike Team. The strike teams respond to oil discharges, hazardous substance releases, weapons of mass destruction events, and other emergencies. You could also be stationed at one of the Coast Guard's International Mobile Training Teams. These training teams provide technical training and consulting in maritime law enforcement, marine safety and environmental protection, small boat operations and maintenance, and search and rescue training to our international partners across the globe. Lastly, one of the best kept secrets in the Coast Guard, in my opinion, is the agreement between the United States Coast Guard and the Royal Navy that allows qualified engineers to live overseas and serve with the Royal Navy for up to 36 months. Now let's get into some of the cons of becoming a machinery technician in the United States Coast Guard. Con number one, if you happen to get stationed on a cutter as an MK and you pull into a port call, whether it's in the United States or another country, you are never one of the first folks off of the boat. The yeomen, the SKs, the HSs, the MSTs are all going to be throwing you the peace sign as they scurry across the brow, headed off on liberty. Meanwhile, you're stuck behind refueling the cutter, refueling the small boat, fixing things that broke while you were underway, and completing routine maintenance. So if you want to be one of the first folks scurrying across that brow, machinery technician might not be the way for you to go. Con number two, lack of sleep underway. If you think you're going to get your 8 hours of beauty sleep, you can forget about it. One of the drawbacks of being one of the crucial rates that help keep the Coast Guard moving is that it's a 24-hour job. Emergencies don't care if you just got off a 4-hour watch, doesn't care if you just got finished with a search and rescue case, conducted some boardings, or worked 12 straight hours. You have to be ready to respond because in the case of an emergency, the success of the mission and the safety of your shipmates all depends on it. Con number three, you can't be an OIC. Bosun mates have a lock on the officer in charge position as of right now. That's why bosun mates like to jokingly say that either you're a bosun mate or you work for one. Hopefully one day this might change, but if you're interested in being an OIC, machinery technician might not be for you. Con number four, sea time requirements. As a machinery technician, you're required to get at least 36 months of qualified rated sea time in order to advance to the level of E7, otherwise known as a chief petty officer. So if you're someone who doesn't want to get underway, doesn't think the underway boat life is for them, then a machinery technician rate might not be for you. But when people tell me this, I always like to ask the question, if you didn't want to get underway, why did you join a seagoing service? Doesn't make too much sense to me. But MK might not be for you if you're one of those folks that don't want to get underway. Con number five. Con number five to me could have actually been a pro, but it all depends on the mindset of the individual. See, some of the smaller units in the Coast Guard, they don't have storekeepers available to them or EMs or DCs attached to the units at all. So when it's time to order new parts, it's time to order new supplies, which would have been the job of the SK, guess who's filling that position? Most of the time, the MK. Or let's say the pipes are clogged at your unit, the toilets are broken, which usually would be a DC's job, but you don't have a DC available to you. So guess whose job that is now? The MK. Or let's say you have a complex electrical issue and somebody needs to troubleshoot that. If you don't have an EM at your unit, most of the time, guess who that falls on? The MK. If you're someone like me, this will be a pro because I like learning all the additional skills necessary to complete these tasks. But there are some other machinery technicians out there that look at this as a con because all they want to do is their job. They just want to turn wrenches, they don't want to fix toilets, they don't want to handle electrical issues, and they don't want to order supplies. So to them, this would be a con. Now let's review some of the pros and cons of becoming a machinery technician in the United States Coast Guard. Pro number one was the fact that the machinery technician rating is the second largest rating in the Coast Guard, allowing you to be stationed at over 98% of the units throughout the Coast Guard. Pro number two was the fact that machinery technicians don't just turn wrenches. Pro number three is the top-notch mechanical training you will receive at Machinery Technician A School in Yorktown, Virginia. Pro number four, the leadership opportunities. Like I said before, once you leave Machinery Technician A School as a newly minted petty officer, you will be dropped right into a leadership position at your first unit. Pro number five, is the opportunity to be stationed at a lot of these special units throughout the Coast Guard. Con number 1 is the fact that if you're a machinery technician, when you pull into a port, you will never be one of the first folks scurrying off the boat headed out on liberty. Con number 2 is a lack of sleep underway. Getting 8 hours of beauty sleep as a machinery technician underway probably won't happen. Con number 3 is the fact that, as of right now, you can't be an officer in charge. Con number 4 is the 36 months of rated sea time required to make it to the E7 Chief Petty Officer level. If you're somebody who doesn't want to get underway, then that's definitely a con for you. Con number 5 is the fact that if you're stationed at one of the smaller units in the Coast Guard where there's no SKs or no DCs, those jobs are probably going to fall on you. So when the parts and the supplies need to be ordered, that's you. When the toilets get broken or if they clog up, guess what? That's you. All right, YouTube family, that concludes my video on the pros and cons of becoming a machinery technician in the United States Coast Guard. And remember, like I said in the beginning, the list wasn't in any particular order. It's just a list of pros and cons that can help you determine if becoming a machinery technician in the United States Coast Guard is for you. And like I always say, if you know somebody who can benefit from this information, please share the video with them. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel on your way out. And like I always finish these things off, maybe a salute and a peace to you. Hope to see you on the next video. See you next time.